Greetings, social media kindred in spirit. I am Deborah M. Stewart, a custodian of the promptings of the divine mind, in association with Matthew 22, 1-14, for the bride of Christ via the application of the principles of Jesus to obtain Christ consciousness, which is ascension. We are continuing our reading for solar biology by Hiram Butler. The subject matter is the 12 signs and functions of the Zodiac. Aries. Aries begins at the equinoctial on the 21st of March and extends to the 19th of April. All persons born between these dates belong to that function of the grand body of humanity, the head. The use of the head in the natural world is to think, to reason. Therefore, these persons are natural reasoners and thinkers. Their brain, always busy, is the most active function of their body. They are natural lovers of scientific thought, reason, philosophy, and of educational pursuits, are independent characters, and have their own ideas of right and wrong. The only way they can be controlled is through their reason. They are apparently stubborn, but this is only apparent, however. These persons, if required to do work in the same manner as someone else, are always thrown into confusion. They must do everything in their own way. That is, they must first have an understanding of what they are doing, and what the thing is to be when accomplished, and then left to accomplish it according to their own methods. Otherwise, they get confused. They are not apt to be mechanics. Again, the function of the head is to keep the whole body in harmony, and for that reason, harmony is the dominant feature of their nature. They love order, elegance, and beauty, and as a rule, they like large, spacious rooms with plenty of light and air. They are great lovers of music and of dancing. Very commonly, as soon as music is heard, the life forces start within them, and it is hard for them to keep still. They have a great deal of electrical fire nature in them, and their atmosphere is full of motion and active, heat-producing elements. Every disease that attacks them always goes to their head, because their nature is such that they are using up the forces through the brain constantly, as this is the leading function of their being. Therefore, everything that affects their body affects their head. Because of this, they are liable to disease and inflammation of the brain more than any other persons. Excitement and worry nearly always produce sick headache and sometimes derangement of their digestive organs. Quiet, rest, and sleep are the best medicines. Children in teething that are born in this sign should have a great care to keep their brain cool. Harmony is absolutely necessary to the health of all persons born in this sign. Middle-aged persons that have an over amount of vitality are liable to paralysis. Females who are very stout are especially in danger when they pass the menopause of life. These persons usually adapt themselves to the habits and customs of society, and they love to excel in whatever they undertake and be the head. It is very difficult for them to serve in subordinate capacities. This nature is the result of a very harmonious mental and physical condition on the part of the parents, with minds very active in thought and study. Taurus begins on the 19th of April and ends on the 20th of May. This sign belongs to the cerebellum and neck, which controls the lymphatic system of the body, that is, the waters or fluids of life. Such persons generate life forces very rapidly and are very determined in whatever they undertake. They are characterized by the common phraseology of stiff-necked. They are very unyielding and are natural conquerors. As a rule, they will have their own way and accomplish their own desires at all hazards. They are great lovers of literary pursuits and inclined to be studious, but imitators rather than originators of thought. They adapt themselves readily to the customs of society. and are apt to become leaders through their adaptation to the demands of the people and their great ability to commit to memory from books and authorities, and their powers of mental and physical endurance. They are governed by their sensations and are influenced in their decisions by their feelings, appetites, and passions. They have fine intuitions in all that pertains to business. They are very sensitive to psychic influences, which makes them apparently more stubborn than they otherwise would be, because they realize intuitively that they are very easily led through their sympathies. Young people born in this sign are apt to be misled by their associates. They are very zealous and sanguine in every cause they espouse, and therefore are liable to extremes. Frequently they are very zealous church members and preachers. They are zealous friends or enemies, but easily turned aside or mollified in this respect. They have a very strong brain and are apt to be hard students and make superior educational attainments. They feel the minds of others, and it is very difficult for them to distinguish the difference between their own mind and the mind of those associated with them. Because of this, persons born in the sign of Taurus should make all their decisions when entirely alone, and never decide any important business matter while in the midst of business excitement, for if they do, they are more apt to make the decisions from the influence of those around them than from their own mind. The early morning when they first awake is the best time for such persons to make their decisions and lay their plans for the day. Children of this date of birth are largely dependent on their education for their future position in life. They have strong appetites and are apt to be inclined to Epicurean habits. Their passions and sex nature are strong, and they are in danger of excess in that direction. Women born in this sign are in great danger of being misled by their feelings and passions. When a person has gained their sympathies, they have gained control over them to a very great extent. Both sexes have a great deal of jealousy in their nature. They are somewhat in danger of great extremes, yet when they are well instructed in the right way, they are very tenacious to carry it out, and cannot be controlled against their will. These persons are liable to dropsy from two causes. First, from getting an overamount of vitality through eating too much, and having what they eat too rich and getting too fat. Second, through strong appetites and overindulgence of the sex passion. Remove the cause and the cure is accomplished. They are, as a rule, best adapted to city life. This nature comes from the parents being very potent in the sex life and quite satisfied with each other and their surroundings, but this frequently is wholly on the part of the father. Gemini. This sign includes all persons born between the 20th of May and the 21st of June. They belong to the sphere of the body represented by the inferior cervical ganglia. The arms and hands in their uses are the expressors of the thought of the brain. They likewise belong to the realm of education, art, and mechanics. Such persons are always very active, restless, and anxious, being the result of anxious, restless, or dissatisfied parental conditions. Therefore, persons born in this sign are never satisfied. There is always a restless want of something, they know not what. In cases of very coarse hair and dark complexion, there is created a combative feeling, a vague imagining of evil, and a distrustful of associates, and of those with whom they have to do. They are very active and want to be doing something all the time. They are lovers of knowledge in all its departments. Many successful speakers and lecturers come from this sign. Children born at this time should always have a superior education. They are apt to lack continuity. They are vivacious but liable to be inconstant, and are in danger of extremes in everything they do, unless this is modified by planetary conditions. They are liable to nervous disturbances and ought always to associate with persons that are quiet, easy, and restful. Ladies are liable to hysteria. Children are apt to have fits from teething. Should they have worms during the time they are teething, they ought to be kept very quiet. Parents ought to restrain such children from all kinds of excitement and exciting scenes, and should cultivate in them the habit of self-control. It would be well for persons born in this sign to remember that their dissatisfaction, restlessness, and anxiety arise from parental conditions than from surrounding circumstances. Therefore, they should positively restrain it, always remembering that the cause is from within. Cancer. Cancer begins June 21st and ends July 22nd. These persons are at the head of the Department of Domestic Life and embody the principles of the home and family. As they belong to the maternal functions, all the phenomena of the mother's breast, in its sensations and uses, are characteristic of all persons born in this sign. They are great lovers of home and family. They are over anxious about making money and laying up for the future. They are industrious and economical to an extreme, and are sometimes miserly. They are very kind, loving, and sympathetic. Their love nature is their weakness. They make very kind and loving husbands and wives, loving fathers and mothers. As such, their whole life is apt to be devoted to their children. So remarkable is it that in case the father is born in this sign, the children will love him more than the mother, thus recognizing the great mother nature even on the positive side. Persons born at this time are exceedingly sensitive to the physical and mental conditions of others. They sometimes appear even eccentric and queer because of their sensitiveness. Children born at this time are often destroyed by nurses whose magnetic and mental conditions are exciting and annoying to their nerve system, and it is very frequently the case that the life force is drawn out of them and they are depleted by others. Children of this state of birth ought never to be under the care of ladies or nurses who have passed the menopause. It is noticed that children will sometimes scream and act as though they were hurt when taken into the arms of certain persons. This sensitiveness is nature's means of self-protection. Those born in this sign, whether young or old, ought never to associate with or be under the care of persons repulsive to them. Disease and frequently death is caused by the failure to heed this law. It will often be noticed that those whose influence is very unpleasant to them will nevertheless persist in forcing themselves upon their society, and that is very difficult to get rid of them. Such absorbs and feed upon and deplete the vitality of those born in this sign, and it should not be permitted, especially in the case of children. The children of this period should have a careful education in the direction of the uses and abuses of the sex nature. In matters of education, they are lovers of knowledge, but this, in their case, is largely qualified by planetary conditions. Their minds are very mechanical, and they usually belong to the manufacturing and trading sphere of life, but women of this sign incline largely to literature. Notwithstanding their sensitiveness, they are very persistent in the execution of their plans and the accomplishment of their purposes, but it is very difficult for them to work under others. They want to be at the head in their own department of service and have a great dislike to be subject to the direction or dictation of other persons. They ought to be very careful in all matters pertaining to their digestive organs, as they are liable to inflammatory diseases, humors, etc., of the abdominal region. Ladies should take special care of their breasts while nursing, for they are liable to have suppuration. Great care should also be exercised to avoid intimate association with inharmonious companies. Inharmony in the love relations has a great tendency to the development of tumorous diseases. Little girls especially should be carefully guarded until they are able to protect themselves, for they are just like sensitive plants. Under proper conditions, persons of this nature develop a strong willpower, are self-reliant, but males are apt to be rather quiet and uncommunicative, though persistent in the direction of their innate nature, but females are inclined to be very talkative and even intellectually brilliant. This nature is produced usually by a strong desire on the part of the parents for a child and an active sense as to the pleasure of home, family, and the domestic relations. Leo. Leo represents the heart, the love, and emotions. The period of this nature begins July 22nd and ends August 22nd. Through the heart pass all the fountains of life. Correspondingly, these persons possess a great variety of inclinations and dispositions, being in conjunction with the grand heart of the solar nature and a reciprocal center of all the forces in humanity. They are also greatly affected by the mental and physical conditions of people to whom they stand intimately related. They can readily adapt themselves to almost any condition of life. They are naturally active and aspiring, energetic, but subject to great extremes. They are inclined to be independent thinkers, but are controlled more by their intuitions than their reasoning, but their intuitions usually take the form of reason and philosophic thoughtfulness. With a fair degree of self-control, they usually manifest superior power in whatever direction they turn their minds. Their love nature is their weakness, as they are easily led and sometimes misled by those professing friendship. Their nature is remarkably allied to the laws of creation, and as all mechanism is in conformity to the law of nature, they consequently have fine, orderly minds, and are usually very handy in doing anything they undertake. They seldom make high attainments except in the mercantile and intellectual spheres of life. On account of their fine, sensitive, and emotional nature, they are inclined to act from their feelings. Their disposition is such as to ally them to a communal or brotherhood life, where the sentiment would no longer be mine but ours, having all things in common. They are inclined to act and speak from their unusually fine, sensitive love nature, and therefore are constantly being misunderstood and often doing things they ought not to do until education comes to be a sufficient guide in the right way. They have a great disposition while young to imitate the life and habit of those around them, and are apt to jump at and act from conclusions too quickly. They lack natural policy and therefore get into many difficulties. In childhood they always live in an ideal world, and have to learn the hard facts of life often from sad experience, and unless carefully educated or happily surrounded are apt to become dishonest, distrustful, and tricky in business. For when they find that life is a struggle and conflict, they look out for themselves, feeling justified by what they see others do. Yet they have an innate nobility and superiority of character. But when inverted from an ability to act it out on account of surrounding conditions, they are liable to go to the other extreme, and this would make of them peculiar and undesirable persons. They cannot easily be kept down, however, as they have great elasticity, and with their active, aspiring natures they are constantly coming to the surface in their endeavors to get above the common level of humanity. As a rule, they are law-appreciating and abiding characters. Children born in this sign should be governed by a positive law and rule of life, and parents themselves should not transgress the rules they lay down for the government of such children, as while they love law, and will render love and obedience to those who enforce the same, yet they are very observant, and readily detect inconsistencies in this respect on the part of the parents. Their observant nature is manifest when very young, as they notice everything that transpires about them, and because of this disposition to observe and experiment, they develop and manifest through life an inventive genius, and also display extremely brilliant attributes of nature. When the organ of conscientiousness is large, it intensifies their ideas of law and justice, and in their business relations they are apt to appeal to the law and waste money thereby, especially if they are polarized in Sagittarius. Those born in this sign often pass through life without having their true nature understood or appreciated. In selecting a husband or wife, great care should be had. If a gentleman, he will be greatly aided in intellectual attainments by the selection of a wife born in Aries, March 21 to April 19th. Children born in Leo should have special instruction as to the importance of restraining their sexual desires, for they always live in their feelings and should be guarded and warned of the dangers in that direction. A greater responsibility rests upon parents in the proper education and control of a child of this nature than of that of any other. The diseases that are most liable to attack them are consumption and palsy. Their weakness is in the region of the breast, lungs, and circulatory system. Everything affects the part of the body. Long continued sadness will soon weaken the breast, derange the digestion, and impair the lungs. This nature springs from a deep soul love and approximation to soul union, even though there is little prospect of its perpetuity. Virgo. This sign is from August 22 to September 23. Persons born between these dates belong to the solar plexus of the grand body. The solar plexus is that function which controls the digestive forces and is the great chemist of the human organism. The minds of these persons are very fine and discriminating in all departments of their life. As children, they are apt to be peculiar about their diet and often seem notional to those who do not understand this nature, as they instinctively discriminate, having likes and dislikes, and ought not to be restrained or opposed as to their peculiar choice in eating, save as to the matter of quantity. Their appetites are naturally in harmony with the laws of hygiene, except as the partaking of high-seasoned food creates an abnormal desire. They are natural students of the law of health, anatomy, chemistry, and physiology. Being true children of nature, which they love in all its departments, they have great endurance and aptitude in acquisition of an education. Their eyes are keen and discriminating, oftentimes taking in the contents of a whole page at a glance. As literary men and women, they have marked power. They make the most rapid proofreaders of any of the 12 signs, and wherever a keen, accurate, discriminating eye is needed, they excel. Their judgment and love of color is excellent, and they are fond of the artistic and beautiful. They act from the interior or solar plexus through the external and reasoning faculties, which gives them rather a materialistic tendency and desire to live in and enjoy the externalities of life. Yet in this they combine their intuitions with the reasoning faculties. There are great levels of music and harmonious combinations. Any discord or inharmony affects them very much, even destroying their appetite. They cannot eat when there is disorder or inharmony about them. They want things tasty, nice, and elegant. The sense of feeling is also acute. They cannot bear the least pain or hurt. Even their skin is fine and sensitive to the touch, and children will often from this cause cry out, even from the combing of their hair. These persons have an extremely strong love nature, but have great power of self-control, yet a compliance with the natural impulses of their being as much power over them in all departments of their life. Therefore, young ladies born in this sign are frequently misled by their love nature. Their love is so natural, pure, and devoted that it amounts almost to worship. And, as a rule, there are no women so truly devoted to those born in this sign, which is a natural conservator of vital energy in its native purity, but because of their strong will, they are disposed to control. These persons are capable of making great attainments in whatever line they undertake. They are not apt to be originators, but to such extent as these traits are manifested, it will always have some direct relation to pure nature, physiology, or chemistry, as they are natural chemists, and as such they excel. They have great rallying power, and it is very hard to get or keep them down in a low grade or condition of life. No matter how low down they may be forced, it will be quickly observed by a discriminating mind that they still retain much of their peculiar mental and physical power. Being very like a piece of pure gold trodden in the mud, their purity will always shine through so long as any of their real nature remains. These persons ought never to take a strong dose of emetic or cathartic medicine, and should avoid all exciting scenes and conditions. The finely organized of this type impart a feeling of harmony and rest to those with whom they are associated. As to health, they need to take great care of their digestion. Worry, anxiety, or inharmony will disturb the digestive forces immediately. In such cases, no medicine is needed, only quiet, harmony, and rest. Pure love to these persons is a great necessity and potent medicine, unless the passional nature is dominant. They are sometimes in danger of getting too fleshly and thereby bringing on different forms of gout. They have a strong tendency to be selfishness and a disposition to control others is a characteristic running through this nature. Children of this sign are the product of a loving satisfaction in each other on the part of the parents, which is due to a large measure of physical and soul harmony. Libra. This nature is born between the 23rd of September and the 23rd day of October. It belongs to that of the body called the reins, and is the head of the trinity of the reproductives. Therefore, it is a conservatory of the reproductive fluid, and, as designated in the ancient mythology, represent the serpent or psychic principle. The leading characteristics of all persons born between these dates is centered in their foresight. They are very positive and decisive in everything they do. They are not prone to reason except from the standpoint of intuition and observation. It is advisable that they carry out their first decisions in all matters they undertake, unless they are acting for or under the control of another. They are very susceptible to the psychological influence of their minds, who act mainly upon their principle of intelligence. They thus take on the mental conditions and nature of others, and feel and act like them. Many of this class are found among the spiritualists because of their great susceptibility to the psychic control and their natural spiritual intuitions. As children, they need a positive control by the parents, and in early life they should have a special drill in every department of their nature. There are 3 different types born within this period. The first has large perceptives and a receding forehead, and usually large organs of conscientiousness, according to phrenology. Such persons are best adapted for speculators. If they will cultivate a moral habit of life, they need never be short of money. They should speculate in horses and cattle, or in any articles that can be bought and sold again quickly, and where there is not much stock kept on hand. These persons are guided very perfectly by their intuitions. For instance, in trading horses, if there is anything wrong in the horse, no matter what it may be, nor how obscure, they can point it out instantly. So long as they follow their own intuitions, they will rarely be deceived or cheated. They love excitement, which seems to be their natural sphere. These persons are apt, however, to be led into gambling instead of speculation, where they soon weaken their powers and die a premature death through drink, bad company, etc. This class is most liable to Bright's disease. They are not susceptible to reason. They act on the spur of the moment and from their intuitive perceptions. In the second class, the forehead is comparatively straight and narrow. These persons are best adapted for mercantile pursuits, buying and selling goods. They have a keen intuition as to what they can and cannot dispose of successfully, are apt to choose in marriage persons who are born in Pisces, whose nature is reason, and hence there is sure to be in harmony from misunderstanding of each other's motives, from the fact that Pisces always wants a reason and is capable of giving one. Libra can never give a reason for anything. They know they are right from intuition, but they cannot tell how they know, and nothing excites or annoys them more than to require of them a reason for their decisions and actions. They are frequently quick and high-tempered, which greatly depletes and impairs their health. In the third class, the forehead is round and broader through the temples. These persons are well fitted for bookkeepers and possess great intuitional aptitude for languages. They are enthusiastic lovers of scientific knowledge, always ready to take hold of and examine a new thing, are great students of books, and love to collect works relating to scientific and mystical subjects. They have the finest natural mechanical abilities of any of the 12 signs. They are best adapted to the higher branches of mathematics. Frequently they are found as public speakers and writers. Many of them are also good actors. All persons belonging to Libra have great imitativeness. They are originators and inventors in mechanical matters, but imitators in other departments of life. They are naturally inclined to be religious, but have many skeptical and materialistic tendencies to overcome. They are affectionate and demonstrative in their love, active, industrious, and social, but dangers from licentiousness always lie around them. It is seldom that any great height is attained by those of this sign, except in the educational sphere. Being students rather than originators, they frequently spend a lifetime in study and research for knowledge, examining every new thing that comes up, carefully studying and weighing it in the balance of their intuitions, and if they can adapt it to the fine interior nature which they possess, they are apt to accept it verbatim et litteram. They have very fine sensibilities and are just and honest in their dealings. They have in their innermost selves a fine ideal world of love, order, harmony, and equity, and as they do not find this in the outer world, they are inclined to frequent periods of melancholy. They seldom like to push their way out into the combat of life, but rather seek a sphere of quiet, where they can act from their soul or intuitional nature. They are frequently writers and professional men, and their great imitativeness gives them fine mechanical and sometimes artistic abilities. Their liability to disease is through their excessive activity in all the departments of life, and especially through an excessive use of the perceptive faculties. They are apt to exhaust the vital forces from the reins, and therefore bring on pains across the small of the back and kidney difficulties. When the pain begins to be felt across the small of the back, the sex nature should be restrained, and quiet and rest secured with plenty of wholesome food as their fitting medicine. The parental conditions which produce a child in this sign are strong, devoted love on the part of the positive parent, but frequently the opposite, or aversion and deception on the part of the negative one, so that persons thus born are like grand souls that have been confined in darkness, and who are searching with the spiritual eyes for light, and therefore the frequent reasons of melancholy. Scorpio, October 23 to November 22nd. This class belong to the department of the sex function, and therefore to the fires of life. They have a great deal of magnetic heat in their system, and if proper conditions of health exist, will not suffer much from the cold. They have strong appetites and strong passions, and when angry, a very high temper. They have, besides, a great deal of jealousy in their nature. They are quite conservative and conventional, proud and apt to be pretentious. They have great tenacity of life, but are rather inclined to be idle, and especially disinclined to work with their hands. They want to lead and be led, or, in other words, they like to have a head to look up to, from which to receive orders, and to have others under them upon whom they can enforce the same, which they do with dignity and precision, and sometimes with a degree of tyranny. They have a great tenacity to uphold the accepted order of things, and are conservators and executors of the popular idea and public opinion of their times, but set too much value on external appearances and are rather inclined to be extravagant and self-gratifying. In everything they are inclined to think of self first. They are good friends so long as it pays, but when it costs anything to be a friend they can just as easily be an enemy. They love and even venerate great book knowledge and look up to and have great respect for those in high positions of life. It is the general aspirations on the part of men of this sign to seek government positions, also to be superintendents and overseers, for which they are well adapted. They are frequently found in the government employ, for which function they have great holding power, and are persistent and determined in carrying out the measures they are entrusted to execute. Their habit is usually silent and dignified, weighing well their words to be sure they are right before speaking. They thus impress others as being superior to what they really are, and this is Scorpio's strongest point of influence and success, but when simply relying on themselves they are easily turned about by strong reasoning. Their nature may be said to be one of law, as they are remarkably inclined, when in positions so to do, to make laws and insist that others shall live by them. As a rule, this nature is cold, unfeeling, and exacting, and especially so in seeing that their own laws are carried out. As husbands and wives, they expect to rule, and naturally demand obedience. They are influenced largely by the intensity of their sex nature, yet they have great control over themselves within certain limits. They are very dangerous in their jealousy, and when once suspicion is aroused of husband or wife, they are very liable to commit murder. On this account, those born in this sign ought to be very careful not to give way to the impulses of jealousy, and above all should discipline their minds not to yield to the mere frenzy of suspicion. Again, in all departments of life they should be equitable and considerate. Parents, in rearing the children born in this sign, should commence in early life to instill into their minds the importance of self-control, restraining their tendencies to govern and enforce their will by arbitrary measures. Keep before them the idea of doing unto others as they would have them to do to them. They should be restrained in their luxurious inclinations and given the best possible education. They frequently make very good surgeons, and when religiously inclined, they are successful speakers and effective clergymen. As a rule, they are best adapted to sedentary occupations. They love to be praised and looked up to as superiors. Having a strong will, it gives them great psychological power over others, and they are able to make themselves felt without a word. Through the magnetism of the hands they have, in connection with their great vitality and ability to cure disease, this is especially the case where their bodily condition has been cared for, and preserved in health and strength, under which circumstances they are inclined to be fleshly. The only disease to which this nature is constitutionally liable is heart disease. It is well in connection with this sign to say that in their love relations they are controlled almost wholly by their passional nature, so much so that if not gratified by their companion, they are easily led astray. In their anger they are very subtle and vindictive. This nativity results from the minds of the parents being under control of the sex passion, without any idea of soul love, their minds being mainly engrossed with the thought of making a show in the world. Sagittarius, November 22nd to December 21st. This belongs to that part of the body represented by the thighs, which relates to the muscular and motor nerve systems. The leading characteristic of this nature is the executive. Those belonging to Sagittarius are bold, fearless, determined, and combative. In everything that they do and say they are very decisive. They are apt to be too quick to decide, act, and speak. They are persons of one thought and one idea at a time, and in order to execute this one thought, They throw into it their entire energy without properly weighing and balancing the consequences and difficulties in the line of their action. Their mind is constantly running ahead, going beyond the present. They have a constant tendency to peer into the future and foresee events. This extends even to small things, as announcing who is coming, when the doorbell rings or footsteps are heard, etc. They are not always correct in their prophecies, however, yet they do not often like to give in when they are wrong. In conversation, they are apt to answer before the proposition is fully stated or the thought expressed, and even while the person is yet speaking. They are often mistaken through the activity of their mind. For instance, in the case of hearing a story told, their thought runs ahead and forms a conclusion before the end is reached, and when they come to repeat the story to another, they are almost certain to tell it from their own conclusions, whether right or wrong, and to feel very sure that they are right. Herein children and even grown persons born in this sign are apt to get the name of fabricating, when such is not the intention. They are pretty apt to express the first thing that comes into their minds, and just as it strikes them, no matter what the consequences are. From this cause they are often led into combat, and make enemies and speak harshly to friends. They hate anything hidden or secret, and even secret organizations. No sign is intentionally more honest than this one, and none so liable to get the name of being dishonest from those who do not understand them. They go to extremes in everything they do, being overzealous and sanguine in what they undertake. As a friend, they are such with all their being, and as enemies they also go to extremes. Their kind heart and loving, sympathetic nature, however, restrains them from acts of violence and evil deeds. They are very quick and very high-tempered, and from sudden impulse often do that which they are sorry for. They have great power over their sex nature and have a natural inclination to chastity, and from this, as a prime cause, they have great physical power. It is frequently the case that men of this sign have more nervous energy than the sinews of their body are capable of sustaining when they act under excitement. These are physically the strongest persons of the whole 12 signs. They are lovers of science, hygiene, and self-culture, but are not apt to give such attention to them unless they follow scientific pursuits as a profession. They hate licentiousness and extreme indulgence of the sex function, and their moderation in this direction is sometimes the cause of domestic inharmony, especially if not suitably mated. They are faithful and devoted to whatever cause they espouse, but require to be kept active, or they lose their interest and turn to something else where they can find active and useful employment. The diseases to which they are most liable are sciatica, rheumatic pains, and weakness of the chest and lungs, with a tendency to consumption, to prevent which they should avoid damp localities as much as possible. Their business, as a rule, is that of executors, where their physical energies come into play. They are frequently very finely organized and intuitive, having a great deal of the true prophetic nature, foreseeing social and national catastrophes that are pending, also frequently in the early morning having visions of things that are going to occur to themselves and family, but their foresight pertains mostly to events of a national and general character. They are not what would be regarded as superstitious in their religious nature, but are largely inclined to practical observance. Some of the finest musicians come from this sign, as their active, energetic nature renders their music brilliant and acceptable. They are characterized by great vitality in their love relations, and if they fail to get the object of their choice, it usually embitters their entire future in life. They are very domestic in their tendencies, kind, sympathetic, devoted, and loving, and desire similar expression from their companion, and failing to find this, their own demonstrative nature leads them to say harsh things to those they love. They do not take opposition kindly, but if a good reason can be given, they are easily convinced and reconciled, and banish all hard feelings. This nature comes from extremely active bodily habits, with a great deal of devotion to home, family, and sometimes religion on the part of the parents. If those born in this sign retire from business and cease their efforts, they become morbid, exacting, unsocial, discontented, and disposed to find fault with good cause. Capricorn, December 21st through January 20. These persons are fitly symbolized by the goat, as they make their dependence on the head and throw their whole powers into the execution of their mental plans. Capricorn is the head of the trinity of service, or of the use of the body and business world. Their main function or action is with the head. They are thinkers, reasoners, and philosophers in business schemes. They are natural heads of corporations and large enterprises. It is well expressed by saying that they are natural heads of general business of life. They usually feel as if they were or should be wealthy, and it is often unfortunate if they are born poor, as it is difficult for them to economize in small things. In their great aspirations they must be above the common level, and failing in opportunity they sink low, not being inspired to effort by results they might seem adequate to others. They are proud, independent, and high-minded, and indisposed to labor with their own hands, save in the furtherance of some plan which promises better things. These persons are positive, executive, and determined in their tendencies, and are very apt to want to be recognized as the head of whatever they are in, or else they soon lose interest in it. Frequently, after having met with misfortune, they positively refuse to live within their means until their resources are absolutely exhausted, and being disposed to look down upon those in their own reduced sphere, they thus lose friends and sink into beggary because of such folly. Persons of this sign live mainly in the externals of the world, yet being born at the time the sun enters, when the mystics call the house of the gods. They have a deep, fine interior nature, an extremely high ideal of love, harmony, beauty, and social excellence. Being, so to speak, of the tribe of Judah, they have a measure of feeling that the government is on their shoulders. They have much of the prophetic in their nature, and a deep spiritual ideal that can only be fully expressed by the godlike things of another world. While Capricorn, which is the knees of the grand body, is in the main an external sign, yet extremes in the human body, as elsewhere, often meet, and in a significant sense, the knees are the feet of prayer, and thus these natures become conjoined to lofty interior or spiritual forces, and have corresponding possibilities of life and usefulness. We therefore find them possessed of a sympathy, philanthropy, and love of doing good beyond what would be expected of this sign, and the determined nature tries to carry into externals and force into existence an ideal, something surpassing even their own comprehension. They are lovers of literature, art, and education, and are inclined to contribute freely to maintain educational and art interests, and especially all things of a utilitarian character. They frequently have a broad, elaborate brain, and in such cases make good public speakers. Their talk is simple, plain, and easily understood, but tinged with ideality, and very pleasing to the public. Being natural organizers, they adhere closely to the maintenance and support of the societary conditions of life, as between the two principles of love and sex passion. The latter, as a rule, dominates in them. Women of this sign, owing to the extreme activity of their nature, are not apt to make very domestic wives, and are not well adapted to the care of the house unless they have husbands at their command, and even then in many instances they would find it inadequate and soon be restless for more. Parents should take great care in the education of children of this sign, impressing them with the sacredness of the uses and the horrors of the abuses of the sex nature, and also guard them against excessive pride. They should be impressed with the oneness of humanity, and that the only true superiority is in the superior ability to serve. Shoddy aristocracy is pretty sure to work the destruction of these children, as they are not sufficiently careful to impress them correctly regarding the facts and realities of life. Therefore, however great the amount of money left them, millions of dollars were seen but as so many cents to do others. These children should have a good business education and a practical experience in self-maintenance, which would be worth to them more than millions imperfectly appreciated, and which they would therefore venture perhaps all too rashly. The parental conditions producing these children are expectations and plans looking to large speculations and elaborate business enterprises, which become the incarnate nature of their offspring. Aquarius. This sign extends from January 20th to February 19th. These persons belonging mostly to the nerves of sensation and to the bones and framework of the system, and consequently to a corresponding department of service in the grand body. Their minds are wholly in the useful, and they belong mainly to the mercantile interests of life. They are intuitive and remarkably good judges of character, especially so far as relates to matters of honor and dishonor. Their minds are frequently very active in the direction of the public good. They belong to the sphere of city life, where they can be among and dealing with the people, and are therefore frequently found as politicians. They have a great deal of the psychic or controlling power of the eye, and have minds that are well adapted to pleasing the public in whatever department of service they may be engaged. They are usually very clear reasoners on subjects of a materialistic character, and are capable of acquiring a very fine education. Some of our best national financiers come from this sign. They have too much pride of personal and general appearance, and also altogether too much difference for public opinion, being liable to extremes in that direction, setting too much value on the same, and thereby becoming time servers. They are faithful to their duties in whatever sphere of service they are placed, being earnest and proficient therein. Some of the most faithful and devoted wives are found in this sign, which always gives a fine, devoted love nature, with inclination to purity in its uses. These persons are prominent patrons and supporters of the opera, theater, public parades, shows, fairs, and places of popular resort. Should we go into the crowded streets and place of public assembly, and be given the date of birth of those we there meet, we would find the majority were either born in or characterized by this sign. They are seldom mechanics, though having mechanical ability, but their sphere of use is that of the natural trader. They have an active nervous temperament, and are most liable to disease of a nervous and rheumatic order, but mainly to that of the nervous system. This nature springs from parental conditions that are very active in a trading or business direction, where the mind is kept employed in studying adaptability to the character and tastes of the parties with whom they have business dealings. In short, from great hopefulness and activity in business, society, or public matters. Pisces, February 19th to March 21. This sign belongs to the feet of the grand body, metaphysically speaking, to understanding. These persons are very careful, anxious, restless, and thoughtful. They have a love of acquiring scientific and philosophical knowledge, and as students are fond of history, research, travel, etc., and acquisitive of knowledge from every available quarter. They are very anxious about money matters and provisions for the future, and fear lest they shall come to want, as they cannot bear to be dependent on others. They like to know and feel that they have earned what they possess, and are consequently entitled to its enjoyment. They are usually upright, honorable, and just in their dealings, also sensible, affable, and kind. Frequently we find men of this sign who are walking encyclopedias of knowledge. There is with this class, however, a lack of self-confidence, and frequently, after extensive research and preparation, they hesitate and shrink from coming before the world as professionals, needing some more self-reliant person to push them forward, even though not themselves wholly lacking in self-appreciation and esteem. This is due to innate modesty and inconsistence, As being just, honorable, and upright in their feelings, they desire to give a full equivalent and are fearful that they may fall short in what is due to the situation, and also from an innate feeling that people and fate are against them. As a rule, they have fine mechanical minds and succeed in life because of a feeling that they have obstacles to overcome. Hence, their persistency and fidelity to the trusts confided to them make themselves appreciated and necessary to the service in which they are engaged, for which reason it becomes an interest of others to push them forward, thus compensating for their own deficiency in this respect. There is a good degree of philanthropy in this nature, and they have much sympathy for the suffering of the needy, yet they are quite close and careful in the use of their money. They make accurate and careful accountants and clerks in every department of business, and are usually found in positions of responsibility and trust. As we depend on our feet to keep us upright, so may we rely on those born to this sign or nature. But if the love of money becomes the controlling principle with them, then would their sense of honor become subordinate, and a disposition to trickiness and dishonesty is manifested. While the people of this sign are occasionally lifted very high in public favor and position, yet these instances are rather the exception than the rule. We, however, have an illustration in Washington, who was born on the 22nd of February, and consequently of this sign, also other of our presidents. It is due to children born during this period that they have the best possible educational advantages, and especially in matters pertaining to their future vocation. For a wrong start in life is more serious to them than most others, for when once embarked they are apt to stick for life. Therefore, in entering a calling, consideration should be had as to the chances of their promotion, and especially should care to be exercised in putting them to a trade of limited opportunities, as it is usually anchored them for life to a sphere of drudgery and servitude. Their chances are most favorable in some thrifty mercantile pursuit. They are apt to be law-abiding and somewhat exacting, and consequently rather severe in family discipline. This, however, is only in cases where the head is long from front to back, and the organs phrenologically denominated conscientiousness large. In such cases, they are sure to be bound down to the mechanical sphere, and to be very tenacious and exacting in everything that they themselves believe, requiring things to be done according to the strict law of logic, not giving much consideration to the to the intuitions, but inclining rather to antagonize the same. They are, in the natural sphere of thought, materialistic in tendency and views, and it is difficult for them to form accurate conceptions of religious or spiritual subjects. Their sexual inclinations are usually quite moderate and chaste. While not ardent in their love nature, their quality inclines to a faithful adherence to marriage vow. The diseases to which these born in this sign are liable are varied, but most noticeable are pains in the feet and head, and the latter respect being affected in the brain somewhat like those born in Aries, only to a smaller degree. They are also subject to despondency and self-censor, and women to uterine displacements. This nature results from struggling and usually antagonistic conditions on the part of the parents, and hence their anxious, struggling habit and nature. I pray that the description of the 12 signs will assist you in your ascension journey, and you can make the applicable adjustments in your spiritual life and your physical life as far as exercising and your diet. I look forward to seeing you in our next session. Till we meet again.